Hi, my name is Charlie, and my topic was the effects of corporate culture. What I'd like to go over is kind of what corporate culture means, as well as understanding how it's developed and structured, as well as give some of the negative and positive effects of corporate culture, and lastly, just kind of go over what the term means in today's business environment. So, a simple definition of corporate culture would probably be the philosophy, values, behavior, dress codes, etc., that together constitute the unique style and policies of a company. I think this is probably what most people think of when they hear the term. However, I think there's a little bit more to it than just a simple definition. In many ways, corporate culture and outside general cultures are always connected. The society in which a business is located usually shapes the individual attitudes of employees to a large extent. And it's, when you have a lot of different people, and especially if the workplace is diverse, you have all these attitudes and beliefs that kind of come together to create a culture within a company or office. And while many companies have a particular way of doing things during the first few years, a lot of things change later on that shape a company's culture. And business environments are usually rarely static. They evolve over time as attitudes of employees and circumstances surrounding the company change. And I put this graph in here. I thought it was a really good symbol of how corporate culture is more of a cycle than it is a path. It doesn't. It usually revolves around the employees who are working in the office or company during a particular time. I think as if there's a higher turnover rate, there's the corporate culture usually probably isn't as consistent as it would be for a company who has employees who've worked there for many years. And so going into some of the positive effects of corporate culture, um, when a company has a diverse group of employees with positive boundaries, there's usually a higher production rate and ideas flow more fluidly throughout the company. And also, companies with a positive corporate culture usually tend to see employees as their most valuable asset. A positive corporate culture can really attract people from the outside, such as consumers, investors, and analysts, and it can really set a great example of how teamwork and diversity really kind of go hand in hand. And lastly, people will often stay at a job longer that has a great corporate culture, um, even if it's not really what they first set out to do or doesn't pay as much as they'd wish. And kind of going into the negative effects of corporate culture can really kind of be summed up. It can end up making a lot of people feel alienated and having to battle between their personal beliefs and the beliefs of their coworkers and how they're expected to act. So when there's a usually if there's a negative corporate culture, it means that most workers don't feel comfortable or acknowledged, and it also can be associated with activities or policies that go against the outside general culture. And another common issue is that the rights or policies routinely change, and that can kind of result in confusion and inefficiency. And also, the negative corporate culture can really slow down the creative process and cause a situation where fighting for a particular status becomes more important than moving forward in a company. I think we see a lot of that with a lot of companies that place titles and promotions above having a creative environment for employees. So moving forward, as technology gets more advanced, people now have access to what's going on behind the doors of a company more than they used to through sites like Glassdoor, where current and former employees can really go on there and review um, what it's like to work for the company, how the bosses are, and how structured or unstructured a particular company is. And the idea that there is only one path to corporate success is really fading with access to things like Kickstarter, where the public can actively fund a developing company's idea. I think this changes a lot because companies who have a great idea or have people who are constantly coming up with really good ideas are now having access to more funds than it was 10 to 20 years ago. And finally, using corporate culture as a way to attract promising employees is something that has become more popular today than it used to be. I think we see a lot of that with companies like Google and Apple. They kind of sell an idea and a culture more than as much as they do a product. And I think Google has won a lot of awards for being one of the best places to work in America, and I think that's because they kind of um, offer more of a creative workspace for their employees. And so, lastly, the main point I want to get across is that really the attitude of those within the company is perhaps the most fundamental element of a corporate culture. When executives and managers and just everyday coworkers are all on the same page, it kind of, especially with basic corporate values, it kind of becomes possible to have a general agreement on the relationships that must be in place to accurately reflect the desired set of characteristics for the business. And that's it. Thanks for watching.